Have you heard a real-life ghost story? Whenever I'm traveling and meet someone new, this is the first thing I ask people. Have they seen any ghosts that have jumped onto them from spooky corners, or any hazy female figures dressed in white that they saw shimmering on a lonely, dark road? I write ghost stories because I'm highly curious about ghosts, monsters, and all things that belong to the dark. In this channel, I wanted to share with you a few stories I've heard from friends and strangers over the years. They're all true, at least to the people who told them to me. In a quaint village nestled among the snow-capped peaks of Switzerland, there stood a charming old cottage that had been passed down through generations. The cottage belonged to a family whose lineage was intertwined with tales of the supernatural, but none was as peculiar as the story of the dancing table. This tale was shared by a friend, an enthusiastic blogger, who recounted the experience of her great-grandmother's peculiar wooden table, a relic of the past that held an enchanting mystery. The table was small and round, crafted from sturdy wood with a smooth, polished surface that gleamed softly in the candlelight. Its three split legs formed a central stand, giving it an almost whimsical appearance. For years, it was a centerpiece during family gatherings, especially on chilly evenings when stories of the past were told, and laughter filled the air. But as night fell and shadows danced across the walls, the table transformed into something more than a mere piece of furniture. It became a conduit for spirits. The great-granddaughter, ever curious and a bit skeptical, often heard tales whispered among the adults about the table's magical abilities. They would gather around it for spirit sessions, where they attempted to communicate with those who had passed. It was said that the table would rock and knock, responding to the questions posed by eager participants. Intrigued but skeptical, she decided to join her cousins and an uncle one evening, determined to unveil the truth behind the legendary dancing table. As twilight settled, the flickering glow of candles cast dancing shadows on the walls, setting the scene for their experiment. The children settled around the table, their eyes wide with anticipation and excitement. "Let's see if it really moves," she declared, her voice a mixture of bravery and disbelief. Her uncle chuckled, telling them to focus their energies and invite the spirits to join them. At first, nothing happened. The children giggled, their disbelief filling the room like the sound of their laughter. But as they began to chant, a strange sensation filled the air. The table suddenly began to wiggle, almost as if it had a life of its own. The children gasped, and the laughter turned to silence, eyes wide with a mixture of fear and wonder. "Stop pushing it!" she exclaimed, looking at her uncle, convinced he was playing a trick on them. "You're just freaking us out!" But as the table tilted precariously, lifting one leg off the ground as if standing on a single point, her heart raced. This was no ordinary prank. Something supernatural was at play. Just as she was about to dismiss it as an illusion, she felt an unusual jolt shoot through her body, an electric shock that reverberated from her fingertips to her toes. The table seemed to thrum with energy, responding to her disbelief. Okay, I believe," she shouted, though her words felt hollow against the electrifying atmosphere that enveloped them. In that moment, she realized the table was not merely a vessel for spirits, but also a guardian of their family's history, embodying the collective memories and experiences of those who had gathered around it. It was as if the spirits were saying, "We are here. We are real." The children watched in awe as the table danced and swayed, creating a rhythm that echoed through the room. The candles flickered more intensely, casting flickering shadows that leaped across the walls like playful spirits. The table's movements became more pronounced, rocking back and forth as if responding to their excitement. Then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the spectacle ceased. The table settled back onto all three legs, and a profound silence enveloped the room. The children exchanged glances, their earlier bravado replaced by a quiet reverence for what they had witnessed. From that night on, the great-granddaughter became a believer, her skepticism melted away by the inexplicable events surrounding the dancing table. She often reflected on that magical evening, sharing the tale with friends and family, ensuring that the legacy of the table and the spirits it connected with lived on. Years later, as she sat at the very same table, now a little worn but still beautiful, she couldn't help but smile at the memories. With each gathering, she could almost hear the echoes of laughter and whispers of long-gone relatives, filling the room with warmth. The dancing table was more than just a piece of furniture. It was a link to her heritage, a reminder that some mysteries in life are meant to be cherished and believed in, no matter how improbable they may seem. In the heart of Switzerland, among the mountains and valleys, the story of the dancing table continued, its magic woven into the fabric of family history, forever enchanting those who dared to gather around it. The man? In the heart of the Himalayan mountains, where the peaks touch the sky and the valleys echo with whispers of ancient stories, there lies a stretch of road that winds through dense forests and rocky terrain. The locals have long shared tales of the supernatural, weaving them into the fabric of their daily lives as if they were simply the natural order of things. And one such story, passed down through generations, is that of the man with a lantern. I heard this chilling account from an old man, his face weathered and lined with the marks of time, as he recounted his youthful encounter with the unknown. He spoke with a mixture of reverence and fear, his voice low and steady, drawing me into the chilling world he had experienced long ago. "It was a night like any other," he began, his eyes distant as if he were transported back to that fateful evening. The moon hung low in the sky, but its light was scarce. I was walking down a lonely stretch of road, surrounded by the thick, encroaching darkness of the jungle. There were stories about the wildlife that roamed the night, snakes, leopards, and other creatures, and I was acutely aware of the danger lurking just out of sight. As he walked, the chill of the night air seeped into his bones, heightening his senses. He could hear the rustle of leaves and the occasional call of distant animals, but mostly there was silence. Then he spotted a flicker of light up ahead. A man was walking, carrying a lantern that illuminated the path before him. "Seeing another person gave me a sense of relief," he continued. I called out to him, my voice echoing into the night, "Hello, can you help me? It's too dark out here." But the man didn't turn or respond. He just kept walking, the lantern swinging gently with his movements. The old man quickened his pace, eager to reach the stranger. As he approached, he could see the light from the lantern casting long shadows on the ground. Each step he took was filled with trepidation, yet his curiosity urged him on. The air felt charged, as if the very night was holding its breath. Finally, he reached the man and hesitated for a moment, sensing something was off. With a nervous resolve, he placed a hand on the stranger's shoulder. The man turned, and in that instant, the light of the lantern illuminated his face, revealing a sight that would haunt the old man for the rest of his days. "There was nothing there," he said, his voice shaking slightly. "No eyes, no lips, no nose. Just a blank expanse where a face should have been, an empty void that seemed to stare right through me." A cold dread washed over him, an instinctual fear that propelled him to turn and run. "I ran as hard as I could," he recalled, the panic still palpable in his tone. "I have no idea where I went. I didn't stop until I reached the safety of my village, gasping for breath, my heart pounding like a drum in my chest." The old man's eyes darkened as he recounted the memory. "From that day on, I never walked that road at night again. People say the man with the lantern is a spirit, a lost soul searching for something he can never find. Some say he is a warning, a reminder that the darkness can hold more than just the natural world." As he finished his story, the night around us seemed to thicken, the shadows deepening as if they were listening. It was a stark reminder that in the mountains, where the veil between the living and the spirit world is thin, tales of the paranormal are not mere stories. They are warnings, lessons, and echoes of encounters that linger long after the night has faded. In that moment, I understood why the locals spoke of these experiences with a mix of nonchalance and reverence. In the high mountains, the presence of the supernatural is woven into the very fabric of their existence, a reminder that sometimes the darkness holds mysteries that are better left unexplored. The man with the lantern remains a part of their landscape, a ghostly figure forever wandering the lonely stretches of road, waiting for the next curious soul to cross his path. In a small, unassuming town, the arrival of a new family often sparked curiosity and speculation. However, the Malone family brought an unsettling aura that seemed to hang in the air like a heavy fog. The townspeople couldn't quite put their finger on it, but something about them felt off. Margaret Malone, the family's youngest daughter, was a bright and spirited girl of just 8 years. With her tousled brown hair and sparkling green eyes, she quickly captured the hearts of her classmates. But as the days turned into weeks, strange occurrences began to overshadow her innocent laughter. It started with whispers. Margaret often spoke to herself, her laughter echoing through the empty halls of the school, raising eyebrows among her teachers and classmates. "Who are you talking to?" her friend Lily asked one day during recess. "I'm talking to my new friend," Margaret replied with a bright smile, as if it was the most normal thing in the world. But when asked about her friend, she could only describe a vague silhouette, tall, dark, and shadowy. The other children, enchanted by Margaret's imaginative stories, initially laughed it off as just another game. However, the laughter turned to unease as she began to share unsettling tales about her friends' adventures in their new home. Meanwhile, Margaret's older brother Jacob began to notice strange happenings at home. One evening, as the family gathered for dinner, Jacob couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. He glanced toward the dimly lit hallway and saw a fleeting shadow disappear around the corner. Shaking off the chill that ran down his spine, he dismissed it as a trick of the light. But the following night, as Jacob was settling into bed, he heard the faint sound of giggling coming from Margaret's room. Curious, he crept down the hall and peered inside. To his shock, he found his sister sitting on the floor, surrounded by an array of toys that had inexplicably come to life. They danced and twirled around her as if possessed by a supernatural force. "Margaret," he gasped, startling her. The toys fell silent, and Margaret looked up at him with wide eyes, a mix of excitement and fear on her face. "They love to play, Jacob. They want you to join us," she exclaimed, her voice filled with delight. "Stop it! They're just toys!" Jacob snapped, stepping back, a wave of unease washing over him. "This isn't normal, Margaret." That night, Jacob tossed and turned, unable to sleep, haunted by the image of the dancing toys. The next day, he confronted his parents. "I think there's something wrong with Margaret," he said, desperation creeping into his voice. "She talks to herself and her toys. It's like they're alive." His parents exchanged worried glances, but they dismissed his concerns as sibling jealousy. "She's just being imaginative, honey. Kids often create stories and play pretend," his mother reassured him. "You were just like that at her age." Unconvinced, Jacob began to pay closer attention to his sister's behavior. As the days passed, Margaret became increasingly withdrawn, often lost in conversation with her invisible friend. Her laughter turned to soft murmurs, and her once vibrant spirit seemed dimmed. Then came the incident at school. During a routine spelling test, Margaret began to tremble violently, her pencil shaking in her hand. Her classmates watched in shock as her voice dropped to a low growl, completely alien to the sweet girl they knew. "You shouldn't be here," she hissed, her eyes darkening. The teacher, Miss Peterson, rushed to her side, concern etched on her face. "Margaret, are you all right?" Margaret snapped out of her trance, her wide green eyes flooding with tears. "I'm sorry, Miss Peterson. I don't know what happened." The incident sent ripples of concern through the school, prompting a meeting with the Malone family. They were advised to seek help from a child psychologist. However, as they left the meeting, Margaret's mother, Karen, felt an unsettling weight in her chest, as if an invisible force was tightening around her family. That night, Karen woke to a low humming sound reverberating through the house. As she followed the noise, she found herself drawn toward Margaret's room. The door was slightly ajar, and as she pushed it open, the chilling sight before her took her breath away. Margaret sat up in bed, her back straight, eyes fixed on the corner of the room. "No, you can't take him," she screamed, her voice rising in panic. "He's my brother." Karen rushed to her side, fear coursing through her veins. "Margaret, what's happening? Who are you talking to?" But before her daughter could respond, a cold wind swept through the room, extinguishing the candles and plunging them into darkness. Shadows flickered around them, morphing into grotesque figures that seemed to whisper and taunt from the edges of the dim light. Panicked, Karen grabbed Margaret and rushed to Jacob's room, waking him with a start. "Something's wrong with Margaret," she gasped, her voice trembling. As the family huddled together in the hallway, they could hear strange noises echoing through the house, a cacophony of whispers and laughter, accompanied by an eerie sense of dread. The next morning, shaken and exhausted, Karen decided it was time to take action. She reached out to the local community, seeking help from spiritual leaders and those knowledgeable about the paranormal. One elderly woman, a town elder known for her wisdom, listened intently to Karen's concerns. After hearing the details, she advised the family to conduct a cleansing ritual in their home. "You need to rid your space of any negative energies," she explained, her voice steady. "Your daughter has attracted something dark. It's essential to create a protective barrier around her." With the help of the elder, the Malone family performed the cleansing ceremony. They burned sage and sprinkled salt around the house while reciting prayers and incantations meant to banish malevolent spirits. As they worked, Margaret seemed to calm, her eyes fluttering with a mixture of fear and relief. After the cleansing, things began to improve. Margaret's playful spirit slowly returned, and the dark shadows that had loomed over the family started to dissipate. However, they remained vigilant, knowing that the bond with the invisible friend could resurface at any moment. One evening, as they sat in the living room, Margaret turned to her mother with a serious expression. "Mom, my friend told me he's gone now. He doesn't want to hurt anyone anymore," she said softly. Tears filled Karen's eyes as she hugged her daughter tightly, relief washing over her. "That's good, sweetheart. You're safe now," she whispered. Yet, as the family settled back into their routine, they couldn't shake the feeling that the experience had left an indelible mark on their lives. The house felt different, and shadows danced in the corners, reminding them of the darkness that once enveloped their home. In the following weeks, Margaret resumed her adventures at school, her laughter ringing through the hallways once more. But she carried the weight of her experiences like a secret, an unspoken bond with something otherworldly. One day, as she played with her friends at the park, she spotted a shadow flitting across the ground. Panic gripped her heart for a moment before she caught sight of a child playing nearby. With a deep breath, she shook off the anxiety and continued her game, choosing to focus on the joy of friendship rather than the haunting memories of her past. As time passed, the Malone family learned to navigate their lives with a newfound understanding of the unknown. They often gathered to share stories, both lighthearted and eerie, keeping the memory of their experience alive but never letting it overshadow their lives. Margaret remained a vibrant, spirited girl, forever changed by her brush with the paranormal. The stories of her invisible friend morphed into legends shared among her classmates, who listened with wide eyes and curious minds. But in her heart, Margaret knew the truth, that some friends are not meant to be seen, only felt, and that the world held mysteries far beyond the grasp of their understanding. And as the sun set over their town, the Malone family sat together, united by love, laughter, and an enduring connection to the unknown, always keeping an eye on the shadows, knowing that they were not alone. Nestled on the outskirts of Kanpur, the sprawling campus of IIT Kanpur spans over 1,055 acres, a verdant oasis amid the chaos of the city. It is a place where the air is thick with ambition, dreams, and the relentless pursuit of knowledge. I had the opportunity to stay on this beautiful campus for a few weeks a couple of years ago, and while my days were filled with lectures and vibrant discussions, the nights sometimes whispered of darker tales lurking in the shadows. During a literary meet, the topic of campus legends surfaced. One student, his expression turning somber, recounted a chilling story about a particular hostel room that had witnessed 2 consecutive suicides. After the second one, he explained, the authorities locked up the room, sealing it off from students. Intrigued, I leaned in closer as he continued. Some nights, students reported hearing rattling sounds coming from that room. It was as if someone was trying to open the door from the inside. His voice dropped to a whisper, as if invoking the spirits of the departed. The atmosphere shifted, thick with unease. Another student chimed in. One night, I was studying late and heard the noise. It was so disturbing that I decided to check it out. He paused for dramatic effect. When I approached the door, I could feel my heart racing. Suddenly, the doorknob turned, even though I knew no one was inside. I ran back to my room faster than I've ever run in my life. The group exchanged nervous glances, the weight of the story settling around us. And the strangest part, the first student added, the next year the room was cleared out and given to a first-year student. It was as if the ghost was forgotten. He leaned back, shaking his head as if trying to dispel the lingering tension. I found myself fascinated yet uneasy, pondering what the first-year student might have experienced in that room. What thoughts had filled his mind during late-night studies? Did he hear the same rattling noises, or did he dismiss them as figments of an overactive imagination? Unfortunately, I never got the chance to speak to him. The days passed, but the tale of the haunted room lingered in my thoughts, a reminder of the darkness that can dwell within places that seem so vibrant and alive. Each night, as I lay in my dorm, I could hear the distant sounds of laughter and chatter, but somewhere deep within the campus, a shadow loomed, a reminder that life can take unexpected turns, and the burden of sorrow can echo long after the final breath is taken. One evening, emboldened by curiosity, I decided to visit the hostel where the infamous room was located. As I walked the dimly lit corridors, the atmosphere grew heavier, the air thick with a sense of foreboding. I found the room door, now locked, but the paint was peeling and the hinges looked rusted, as if time had forgotten it too. I could almost feel the weight of the past pressing against my chest. Standing before the door, I felt a chill run down my spine. I imagined the young souls who had once inhabited this space, burdened by pressures that perhaps were too great to bear. I could almost hear their whispers echoing through the silent night, a reminder of their unfulfilled dreams. As I turned to leave, a sudden sound caught my attention, a faint rattling coming from within the locked room. My heart raced, and I hesitated. Was it just the wind, or was there something more? I shook my head, convincing myself it was just my imagination playing tricks on me. With a quickened pace, I hurried back to my dorm, vowing never to let curiosity lead me back to that door. In the days that followed, I learned more about the lives of the two individuals who had tragically taken their own lives in that room. They were students, brilliant and ambitious, yet burdened by the expectations of their families and the relentless pressure of academic life. Their stories served as a haunting reminder of the invisible struggles many face in pursuit of success. Eventually, I left the campus, but the tale of the double suicide remained etched in my memory. It was a poignant reminder that beneath the surface of ambition and brilliance, there are often unseen battles being fought. The legend of the haunted room served not only as a ghost story, but also as a warning, a call to be more compassionate, to check on one another, and to remember that the pressures of life can sometimes lead to tragic consequences. In the end, the story of the double suicide in IIT Kanpur is a haunting reminder that even in a place of learning and growth, the shadows of despair can linger, echoing in the silence long after the lights have gone out. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like, comment, and share the video. See you next time.